Hello everyone, STheHero here. In this video, I'll be going over the best items for every melee carry in set 14. There aren't too many options to choose from in this set, but if you are in a spot to play around one, it's important to know what to do. All of this info can be found on my site, tftanomalies.com, under the set 14 section, which I'll constantly update throughout the set. Because I'm a vigorous planner and theory crafter, I always have a good understanding of the upcoming meta trends, and often find things before anyone else. So, if you want to be ahead of the curve, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. It really helps out a lot. Okay, Nidalee, she's a AP bruiser. She's a nitro, which doesn't contribute to her damage, and she's an amp, which gives her more base damage on her ult, which means it doesn't contribute in a traditional way, but that's actually pretty good because that means Nidalee can build a bit of everything. Her spell does damage to the primary target and then additional damage to secondary targets depending on how much amp she has, and then she also heals. Generally, I think you want more AP and then something further contributing to that. I think the easiest thing, like, because she's a frontliner, I think she has a bit of value from having Crown Guard, but this could also be like a death cap. And then she wants a source of healing because even though she heals from her ability, she does a lot more damage on her ability than she heals, so this would give her more healing. And then just any other kind of amplifier would be good. Jill's Gauntlet is pretty good. So her best in slot looks something like this, usually. She doesn't really like scale super well, but she can do a lot of burst. So Shaco is a bit interesting. He was a menace throughout the start of the PB cycle, but now he's been nerfed so much that he's like kind of weak, I think. He's not like unplayable, but he's like definitely like fallen off from being like just the top meta comp. Shaco's passive gives him permanent AD for each kill he gets. His active just does damage, and then if he has the Syndicate bonus, he teleports to the lowest health target and does a little bit more damage. But basically, with his Syndicate bonus, he would ramp up kills really easily, and he would stack a lot of AD, and he will just one-shot a lot of units. So this guy can be a problem. He's also a Slayer, which gives him a lot of AD, like in addition to his permanent AD, and it also gives him a little bit of Omnivamp. So because of this, you really, really want crit on him, because his ability is like a lot of his damage. And then you support that with a bit more healing, because Slayer has healing but not enough. And then the last thing I think is some kind of protection. Edge of Night is usually the best form of protection because it's an aggro drop. Yeah, the most standard build is this one. I'm going to talk about hero augments now. So these 6 units are not traditionally carries, but they have hero augments which make them into carries. So Jax, his hero augment is called Adaptive Strikes. Gain a Jax, his attacks deal bonus magic damage every 3rd attack, and they get stronger each time. His ability grants attack speed. Basically, he turns into set 8 Jax. He has the bonus on hit damage. He ramps up. I think what people make the mistake of is to all in on his ramping and then assume that he has enough. It is a bit difficult to get to the point where he has enough damage. People build T-Intus on him, and I think after having played it and having played against it, I don't actually think that's correct. I think in reality, you definitely need healing. You definitely need QSS. As for what your scaling item is, I'm not sure, because his cast gives him attack speed, and QSS also gives him a lot of attack speed. So I'm thinking something that gives him AP would probably be best, or something like Titans. I would lean towards something like this being best in slots, or maybe like, yeah, even Nashers would be acceptable. I think he's like, I don't know. The thing is, I keep seeing people build Yildiz on him, and he doesn't last long enough to stack it. Like, I've never seen like a stacked Jax with the hero augment, meaning it's definitely not enough. He needs something. He needs like more protection, I think. I don't know if that just means it's like more healing, or maybe it's like Archangel. But I think when I was looking at stats, it was like this, and I kind of like, I'm okay with this. I think it's better than Rageblade. I think in 6 Bastion there might be an argument for like Archangel. I think, I mean, the base damage isn't even high, but if Edge of Night makes him stack more, that might also be correct. I'm gonna go with what stats say, because I definitely agree with why they would support this, which is basically more base damage and more survivability, and you're playing it slower because Jax does not attack very fast. Poppy, I have played. Oh, I played twice, and I think it's pretty easy. Her thing, I mean, she's just basically set 10 Poppy. She does a lot of damage, but she doesn't skill tank stats, she just skills with damage. So Cyber Boss gives her a good amount of damage and makes her spell AoE, and then Bastion just makes her tanky. The best way to simplify this is just spell crits plus more healing. You can go like double Hodge too, but I like the Bloodthirster because you get the shield, which is I think pretty valuable with Bastion. Because that's like a really effective buffer for her to heal back up. Whereas Hodge is like a little bit more damage, but you're definitely a lot squishier. Vi is like really awkward because I feel like for so much of the PvE cycle, no one's found success on her. I think she's supposed to be built Bruiser. I'm pretty sure she's not supposed to be built Assassin. However, regardless, like the one time I played her, I think I went like 6th. I think I haven't seen anyone top 4 with it, but it's been buffed like I think twice. I would lean towards just Bruiser just because that's the intent. Maybe something like Edge of Nights would be helpful on her. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. Silas Hero Augments it works functionally in the same way as Poppy, where he just wants to he wants the same items. He has a lot of damage. His powers in his spell. He wants a lot of healing. Bloodthirster again has synergy with his trait in Vanguard because he gets a shield, which gives him the Vanguard damage reduction, and it gives him it gives him a buffer which he pretty much needs. As he gets he gets the max health, so which scales with Bloodthirster. He's not gonna get a lot of health, but I mean he's getting some, so it's like sub synergy. I think it's better than just going double Hodge. The other argument could be to go into something like a death cap. This also can be viable because he doesn't have a lot of base damage. I think something like this could also definitely be correct, but one or the other, because neither of his traits give him a lot of damage, so having more AP onto the base damage does a lot for him. You know what, I'll just do Rost. So the way his spell works, actually I haven't been showing what the things are. This is Poppy's Hero Augments. Replace her ability with a 3-hit wallop. She just hits a lot. It is the same thing as set 12 Poppy Hero Augments, except it's AP. And this is Vi's. Vi makes it so she dashes and then does bonus physical damage. It's kind of similar to Rennie Hero Augments in the current set, except it doesn't do nearly as much damage and it doesn't heal. Silas's Hero Augments is Wolf Unchained, which makes his ability do more damage and it resets, but he doesn't get the health scaling so he has lower he passively like gets max health, but like it doesn't scale. But that doesn't really matter. Basically, it just makes his ult do more damage and reset. So that's why he builds it that way. Rost's Hero Augment, Alter Ego, it turns him into set 10 Kayn. And I think probably I think that was a reprint, but I didn't play like that version of Kayn. I only played set 10, but regardless, it turns him into 5-cost Kayn. He spins around and resets. So people have been building Bruise on him. I'm pretty sure that's wrong. I'm pretty sure you just built him like a assassin. All ending on ability damage. You crit, you reset, you do more damage, and then Edge of Night as a layer of protection. Because like this isn't very descriptive. Like he dashes and he spins. If he kills, he casts again. So the best way to make sure he does more damage is if he casts again, and the way he casts again is if he kills the target, and the best way to kill the target is for ability to do as much damage as possible. Lastly, Gragas, which is another one that I think is misunderstood. Chugbug. Gain 1 Gragas. The strongest Gragas' attacks have a chance to knock back and deal bonus magic damage. His ability heals and empowers his next attack. That is not very descriptive at all. But basically, randomly, he's just going to stun lock his current targets, but also when he casts, he does a ton of damage and overkill damage. Like it has a spread effect like Kindred or like Ludens. So basically, you want to do as much damage on his cast as possible. He also needs healing, so other than that, you just want to all in on damage. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it is these items. Damage, healing, crit. I think there's an argument for like Hodge, but I think having the layer of protection on a there is a valid argument here because you actually do want to overkill, but it kind of just depends on the comp that he's being played with. Okay, back to normal units. Graves is a 2-cost. He's a Golden Ox Executioner. He has bonus damage from Golden Ox and he has crit damage from Executioner. Generally, what you want is a source of AD, a source of healing, and then a utility item. I think your source of AD could be something like one of these. I think Graves in particular scales best with this because he doesn't have really good AP scaling. But I've seen a lot of people build Titans. I think stats I think usually prefer Starks just because it's less often built. And the reason why I prefer Starks on Graves is because when we get to Rengar, his items are slightly different just because of the way his scalings work. Yeah, source of AD, source of healing. Hodge is usually best on crit-based traits like Executioner. So if you have, okay, because of the last item, you can go with a Bloodthirster as well if you want. But the last item is usually QSS. Sometimes there's an argument for Edge of Night, but I think it's hard to describe why I think QSS is better over Edge of Night in this situation in particular. Especially since when I talk to... I'm just going to talk about Rengar now. But I feel like Rengar wants Edge of Night over QSS, and I don't know why. Or, I know why he does, but I don't know why Graves doesn't. But Rengar, how Graves' ability works, every 2 autos, he dashes and then has a better auto. And he just does a lot of burst damage. He just goes around shotgunning people. Rengar is a 3-cost executioner. He has Street Demon, which gives him all the stats, but that doesn't usually see play in the comps that he's used in. There might be a Street Demon executioner variant, but I'm not going to worry about that for now. His ability heals him, and then he jumps to the lowest health enemy and does a lot of damage. Because he has this AP ratio on his heal, it actually gives you incentive to build Titans over Sterak's. Because otherwise the tank value of the two is the same. So it's whether you can actually use the AP that makes the difference between Titans and Sterak's. Whereas the Sterak's is better if you don't use AP well. But Rengar does use AP pretty okay, so that's why it's Titans. And then healing item of whatever form. Because, as I said, Edge of Night is better on him. I think Hodge is a lot better on Rengar. But as for the last item, if you don't go Edge of Night, you could go BT anyway. You can go double healing. And that usually works really well. But if you have, like, maybe healing from an Augments, Edge of Night is pretty valuable in Rengar. And that's what separates the two of them. Neferi is interesting because she's pretty weak, regardless of how you build. She passively gains Omnivamp, scaling with AP, and then her active does single target damage, and then scaling with Amp, she does more damage. She has an Exotic item, which is pretty good on her, which is this one. This is her Exotic item. What it does is it gives him AD AP, Omnivamp, and it gives him like a damage storage system where every 4 seconds, pretty much, he does bonus damage to his main target. I think the Fury's going to gravitate towards stuff like that. I think because he's AP well, so it's either going to be like a situation where his damage is high enough where you want crits, or it's not where you want bruiser. I think with his passive and stuff, you don't actually need a healing item on him. So I think, or on her actually, or on them. It's them, but it's also her. So I think Best in Thought would normally look something like this, but there could be an argument for like Infinity Edge. The thing is, Neferi is kind of similar to Nidalee in that her traits don't contribute much to damage. She has base damage on Amp, and X-Attack is like health and attack speed, meaning she needs AD, and AD is a lot easier to stack than crit. If you were to build this, you don't really have enough AD, but there is an argument for it. But the other thing is that Neferi is like too squishy, and her damage is too slow to be like a super good user of this. Like if she ever gets stuck on a tank, she'll never kill it even with Infinity Edge. So you might want to double down on being tanky. But yeah, the point is Neferi has been weak for so long, so it's kind of tough to tell what's actually correct. So I'm just gonna give them Bruiser build. And Titans over like Sterak's, I think it's just because of the Omnivamp scaling. With 2 Titans, at max stacks, you're just doubling this, and then with this it's like 120 plus, like basically she's gonna have like 50 or 60% Omnivamp. So she can maybe drain tank. Fiddlesticks is an interesting one because, and I know that for sure that people, that's from me because I'm the only person, I'm not the only person, but like I'm like the person that loves putting double Archangels BT onto like any unit I can. I tried it on Italy. I tried it on, actually there weren't that many units to set, but last sets I was going crazy with it. But yeah, I tried it on Fiddlesticks, and unlike with Italy, this worked. So then I tried to look for what comps worked. And
I stumbled upon originally 4 Bruiser, 4 Techie, but then once people started playing that, I started looking for. I realized that 6 Bruiser is broken, so I played that, and then suddenly everyone started playing 6 Bruiser. And basically, it synergizes with the fact that I was building these items anyway. But Fiddlesticks, he is a Boombot Techie. Techie gives AP. Boombot is a trait that's just scales with how much damage he does. Like, it gives him more damage depending on how much damage he does. So, in his cast, he hits the 3 closest enemies with a feather and does a lot of damage to them. And he shreds and heals for some of the damage dealt. He has 2 range, so he is a bit vulnerable, but like not like super crazy. You want more healing because 15% isn't enough, and then you want damage. Depending on the comp, you can go for full crit. If you're going like vertical techie, going full crit is fine because you're gonna have a lot of AP. But if you're going vertical bruiser, which is currently the better setup, Archangels works really well because his frontline is super tanky and he'll ramp up and get a lot of AP from that source. And if you're 6 bruiser, you're not going to have that much techie, so this will give him the AP he needs, and then eventually he'll scale and do a lot of damage. As I said, this caught on and has been nerfed. On live patch, it'll still be strong. Had that not been explored, that would have destroyed the patch. So, yeah. Zed is an interesting one. He's the only melee 4 cost this set, which is, in my opinion, a tragedy. But regardless, his traits give him AD from Cypher and AD from Slayer, and then Slayer also gives him Omnivamp. So he's gonna have a lot of built-in AD. His spell works like KDA Akali from set 10, where he marks the furthest targets and dashes to them, and then on each cast he damages all marked targets and like does damage to them. So like all marked targets that are still alive will take damage, specifically in an AoE. Like he AoEs on the marked target's location, so if there's other stuff nearby, it'll also do damage. But basically he's like kind of an assassin. For a lot of the PvP cycle, his damage was too low, but now his damage is actually pretty good. So now he's just an assassin. Originally, I was kind of going for like a drain tank type build, which I think can still work. But I think more realistically now, he was just gonna go like an assassin type build with the high damage that he actually has now. Like I think now Zed's actually at a point where he's like pretty strong. Because even though like his actual damage output is low, he's going to hit priority targets and kill them. So because of that, he like is actually pretty strong, even if the damage charts don't show it. Next we have 5 costs. We have 4 melee carry 5 costs, which is more than usual. Garen is a very, very interesting unit. His unique trait is God of the Net, which grants like permanent, or not permanent, like he basically can give other units other traits while he's on the field. So every now and then you can get a modifier and then you can give a trait to a unit on your board. Or I guess not on your board. You can give it on your bench as well. So like, let's say you have the option to get a like Bastion modifier and you put it onto your Kabuko, who is not a Bastion. He does not contribute to the effects of Bastion, but he benefits from them. So you're not gonna go +1 Bastion, but Kabuko will benefit from the trait, from the highest level of the Bastion trait. So if you have 4 Bastion, you're not gonna go to 5, but Kabuko will get the benefits of 4 Bastion. Otherwise, his spell gives him a big shield and he does a lot of damage. If he doesn't hit many targets, he gets mana back. But he does a lot of damage and he has an AoE effect, and that's about it. I think if you look at the AP ratio on his shield, it's pretty good. So you would lean more towards Titans, but in general, you're just gonna go for like generic bruiser, like AD bruiser type items. Kabuko is a Cyber Boss bruiser. Cyber Boss gives him AP and health, and bruiser gives him health. He is kind of tanky, but he's like a AP bruiser type unit. Passively does bonus magic damage on hits, and then at like certain health breakpoints, he gets like a big upgrade, gets attack speed, omnivamp, bonus mana and stuff. His spell gives durability, and it has an AoE knockup and does damage, base damage, and it does percent damage scaling with the target's max health to all enemies AoE, and obviously that scales with AP. He's an AP bruiser. He's been very weak, but I think he's been buffed enough to be okay. I think the best like things to go for is like any kind of bruisery setup like this. What I have here. Yeah, this is best in slots because he was weak. He's a little bit stronger now, but you wanna know what? Just give him like whatever AP bruiser type items. Renekton is pretty cool. He's a Overlord Divinicore Bastion. Overlord is his unique traits. What it does is he can. There's a certain hex in the behind him, so it is specifically this bottom right hex behind him. So if he's positioned right here, he will target the Kabuko. But what it does is he will take a bite out of the unit, doing 40% of their max health as 2 damage, and upon doing that, he gains 40% of their health and 33% of their attack damage, like for the rest of the combat. So you want to pick a good unit, like either a tanky unit or a unit with a lot of AD, so give Renekton as much stats as possible. And then as for his actual ability, okay, he's also Divinicore, which is like heavenly / guild. It gives him a little bit of every stat. And he's Bastion, which is the armor magic resist stat. AD Bruiser in the tank line. He is unique in that he can only cast twice. Each cast permanently upgrades his himself. Each time he casts, he does AoE damage around him and burns all units hits, and he gains max health. Like, he does this twice. The first time he casts, his attacks will strike twice, doing more total physical damage, and he can dash new targets. And on his second cast, his attacks, instead of attacking twice, they attack 3 times. And yeah, that's it. So it says attack twice and 3 times, but like how it applies on hits is like awkward. Basically, ignore that part and look at the AD ratio. His double attacks deal 175% base AD. His triple attacks deal 270. Basically, he just has more base damage on his attacks. That's like the best way to think about it. So he's a pretty generic AD bruiser. Doesn't have clear synergy with AP, so you kind of can just go like a more traditional setup. I think something like this would technically be better, but any kind of AD bruiser damage items would work on him. Viego is last unit. This is a Soul Killer Golden Ox Techie. Golden Ox gives him damage amp. Techie gives him AP. Soul Killer is a unique trait. What it does is it gives him a summonable unit based on the last unit he participated in killing, and it just is on your board. It has like some health, and it does like it can contribute, but it doesn't contribute to his item build at all. So passively, Viego can heal when a unit on the board dies, and then actively, he jumps. He does just a large AOE, and he does damage. He also shreds, but like yeah, he just hits in a 2x AoE, does damage, and he is just going to be built AP bruisery. Because he's a techie and Golden Ox, he has the potential to do a lot of damage. I think if you're just playing him as a 5 cost, he's not going to do a lot of damage, but if you have his traits active, he will. So in that regard, you can go more assassiny. Otherwise, you can just go like more bruisery, like Kabuko's items. If we're talking about best in slot, it would look something like this. So yeah, that's best in slot for every melee carry.